Heavenly Father, we ask your guidance tonight and your blessing on us as we hear these applications. We ask that you give us the ears to hear the truth and the wisdom to make the right decision. We ask your blessing upon all in attendance. In his name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the roll call? Here. Present.
Roger.
Roger Whitten, thank you.
Here.
All right, now I just turned off my cell phone. Everybody needs to turn their cell phone off. We have a staff report on the Board of County Commissioners' actions.
I've got a couple of announcements at the end. Again, Sam Albrecht, County Manager. I am standing in for Greg, who is on vacation. We added a new pipeline report to the board packet. And as far as any other actions pertaining to Board of County Commissioners, I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Do we have any consent agenda items?
Not tonight.
Citizen comments. At this point in time, if you'd like to address the Planning Commission on something that is not related to any of the applications tonight, you're more than welcome to go up to the mic and address that. If you don't have anything, then we can go ahead and go on with the rest of the meeting. But this is your opportunity if you would like to address the Planning Commission on something unrelated to tonight's applications and hearings. Okay, hearing none. Approval of the April 5th meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Okay. Any comments or changes? No. Okay.
I don't have any.
I didn't pen a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the April 5th Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. Now, for the public hearing process, this requires this body to conduct a quasi-judicial hearing, which means the body must first find facts and base its decision upon the application of the adopted regulations, standards, and criteria and the competent, substantial, and material evidence received during this hearing. All testimony must be competent, on topic, and not repetitious. If anybody wants to talk about one of the hearing items, you'll have 3 minutes to talk, and that's timed. And you'll have to start with your name and address, clearly stated at the microphone, and then speak into the microphone as you make your comments. Okay, we've got the first hearing for tonight, and staff presentation on the Toscana rezone.
All right, good evening, everybody and planning commissioners. I'm Matt, staff planner with Community and Development Services. So this is the Toscana rezone case RZ 210080. This is a rezoning request accompanied by an administrative minor plat request. This will be a transition from agriculture to agriculture residential, from the density of 35 acres to 10. The location is 22903 County Road 1521 Elbert. The landowners are Kristen and Stephen Toscano, and this application has been represented and submitted by Tom Maroney. As I stated before, the concurrent review of minor plat 210081 is going on and is contingent on the approval of this rezone. Generally speaking, the location for this Toscano project is approximately southwest of Elbert on County Road 1521, as seen in this image. Staff met with the applicant on May 13th of 2021, and a formal application was submitted on December 16th. This project had a single referral period ending in January. This will be a recurring theme with the next two applications as well. There was an issue with the notification for these hearings. Therefore, we had continued from a date uncertain, which was March 15th, to April 19th. The Board of County Commissioners was pushed to the next available meeting as well in April 27th. Noticing was completed in accordance with our regulations for this application. Generally speaking, this is the location of the proposal. The area that's highlighted in red up here is the area that's subject to the rezone and the minor plat. It'll be split right down the middle to two lots of approximately 10.45 acres apiece, where the existing residence in the rear will continue to be used by the landowner. This is a overview of the zoning in the area. You can note that it's right across from Academy East, and is general proximity of some lower density and some higher density as well in the area. Going into site specifics, as I stated before, it's a pretty simple two-lot subdivision split down the middle, with an access easement being retained for the residents in the rear on Lot 2. At the time of development, those lots will have their own individual driveways on County Road 1521. Another item to note up on the top here, north of Lot 1, that is a flagpole lot, which has no bearing on this request. So for the referral period that was conducted, there were no notable concerns raised by referral agencies. I believe the only response of concern that we had was the addition of an easement on the plat by Mountain View Electric, which was completed, as well as getting some clarification for the 300-year water supply, which was done and given approval from the State Division of Water Resources as well. So to go over the review criteria, we'll look at the rezoning regulations review criteria, A through F, as we'll cover on the next couple slides, and some of the staff comments that we had on those areas. Generally speaking, we evaluate these proposals against the comprehensive plan. Most rezone and minor plat applications have very few relatable goals and policies within the comprehensive plan. However, the most notable ones that staff was able to find is in regards to water, sewer, and waste disposal, as the development will be approved through state and county processes. Whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with surrounding land uses, staff feels it's appropriate given the mixture of density located in Academy East and generally in that area in southwest of Elbert. Whether the proposed rezoning would adversely impact the provision of public services. Going back on the previous comment, we believe that it's appropriate based on the density that's seen in the area, that there's a wide variety of 10 to well above 40-acre lots, that the provision of public services should not be affected by that. Same thing goes for the impact to the environment, given the fact that there will only be 2 new residences in this area that has seen mild, dense growth over the years. We feel it is appropriate. in regards to traffic congestion or burdening of the existing road systems, we had found through review with Public Works and Road and Bridge did not identify anything of note during that review process. So we believe that there will not be significant impacts to traffic congestion. Whether the proposed rezoning will not otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of Elbert County inhabitants, we, again, piggybacking on multiple of the comments already, the density in the area and the development proposed does not threaten the health, safety, and welfare of Elbert County inhabitants. With that in mind, noting that this proposal is in general conformance with the comprehensive plan, it meets the criteria for approval of the Elbert County zoning regulations, it is compatible with existing and surrounding land uses, and we've identified that it will not lead to a significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of residents. Community and Development Services recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for Toscano rezone RZ 210080 subject to the following conditions. The applicant will be required to move the public hearing sign within 7 days of a decision by the Board of County Commissioners. The rezoning shall not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the rezone exhibit is recorded, and that recordation itself must occur within 180 days of approval. And that concludes my presentation.
Would the applicant like to make some comments on that?
Other than thank the county and
Would you give your name?
Stephen
address,
Toscano,
please?
22903 County Road 15-21. Just like to thank the county and the board for the approval. Tommy Maroney and his group did a good job. Matt as well. And I appreciate the opportunity. Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comment regarding this? Anybody else that would like to make a comment? Okay, hearing none. Public comment is closed. And we'll go to a board-only discussion.
No questions here?
The only comment I had was on the required submittal materials. Number 30 says a final drainage report and plan or drainage letter, and I didn't see anything about that in the packet, but I'm looking at the site. I don't see that there's any issue with that. But does staff have any comment on that?
Yeah, we had consulted with the Public Works Department on that one, and they did not require that with this application.
Thank you.
The access to the property, I understand, is coming off of 1521 for both of the new lots? Yes. Correct. So is that using the existing drive off of 1521, or do they have individual?
They'll be putting their own.
Okay.
Coming off of their lot.
And my request to planning is, or CDS is the bend on that corner. I've seen it busy at times over the years. Is that, are there restrictions on how far away the driveway must be from that bend? I'm not sure.
Not that I'm aware of, and at that time that they would be applying for an access permit off of the county road, that would be reviewed by the Road and Bridge Department to make sure that there's adequate clearance with that turn.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay. Okay. I did have a couple of questions. I noticed in the title commitment that there's a reservation on 1/2 of the grantor's interest in all mineral rights as reserved in the deed recorded March 26, 1980. And I was just wondering, when you notified the mineral rights owner what was going on, did you Are you the mineral rights owner of all of it, or has somebody else got part of it? Okay, so half of them, according to this, are reserved. Is that something you reserved, or is somebody else reserved it?
Mr. Chair, for the record and for the audio, if we can have the applicant come back to the mic and answer all those questions, that'd be great, please. Thank you.
So the mineral rights,
Right.
in regards to the mineral rights, they are owned by the previous owner.
Okay. Was there a notification to the previous owner of what you're doing on the mineral rights?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Was there a notification to the previous owner about what you're doing with the
Yes,
rigging it up?
yes.
Okay. Is that a part of our record?
I don't believe so.
I can get that for you.
Okay. That's something that we need to have done, which would be a condition of the approval, an additional condition. Got several things I was looking at here. Bear with me just a moment. The well was re-permitted for just the, it's no longer the full 60 acres, it'll just be the 40. Is that going to be re-permitted as well?
It already has been
Okay.
adjudicated.
For just the 40 as opposed to the full 60?
Yeah, I'll have to get into that document. I believe that that was not pertinent to the request, that the water was decided for those 20 acres. I'll have to... Yeah, I don't have an immediate answer to that question.
Okay. I think that was all that I had additionally here. Everything else I think was answered, but okay, thank you for your answers there. I would entertain a motion with the additional. You want to?
Let's talk about the condition.
Okay. So we've got the mineral rights owner that needs to be notified. And we need to confirm that the well was re-permitted for just the 40 acres.
You know that the mineral rights owner needs to be...
The mineral rights will make any difference until he sells the property.
Until he sells the whole property. Because I don't know that the mineral rights, you're required to notify the owner of the mineral rights. You don't know that for sure. So I get your point as far as the mineral rights, because it's one that Grant is concerned with. But based on this is a change in ownership, a change in configuration of the property. Doesn't have to do with the mineral rights.
Or the ownership. It has nothing to do with the ownership.
Yeah.
It would.
And I hate to put it as a condition that deals with, it may hinder the application going forward. I hate to put it as a condition when we don't know for sure if they were required to be notified. See what I'm saying? That's just my point. And you go around the board and see what, if I knew for sure that we were required to notify the mineral rights owner, and then if you guys could tell us that, yeah, then I could go with that. But in this case, I think the best thing to do is say just an advisory note that
Could you confirm whether the mineral rights owner needed to be notified or not?
And then they could do it when they bring it up to the.
Yeah, then they can do it when they bring it up to the board. Really, that's what I would propose, but it's up to
And
you.
Peter, in my experience, okay, this is not an ownership change. This is a change in zoning, okay? And mineral rights, okay, are right by ownership only. That's it.
Half of
That's
them,
different.
half of them.
And see, the other thing is, we never notified mineral rights owners before.
We've never done this before.
Because a lot of our lots, you know, like, a number of the lots that you deal with, you don't, actually, sometimes you don't even know who owns the mineral rights. So we're getting down into a point where, okay, do we establish that as criteria now that we notify the mineral rights owner? But we haven't done it before? That's what I'm saying.
We have done it before in my memory.
Well, I don't, but you go ahead. You put it out there and we'll vote.
Okay, it's actually somewhere in our regulations.
Certification of notice for property owner to mineral estate owners. That's one of the items.
To mineral estate owners, okay.
Let's stay on.
Mineral estate,
It just simply says that they've been notified. You said that they.
they've been
would.
notified, okay, so,
They haven't been notified.
They have
The
not.
he said that the previous owner hasn't been notified. Because the
Is that
previous
what was
owner
stated?
has reserved half of the mineral rights. So it sounds like he might have half of the mineral rights, but the previous owner has half of the mineral rights. Because in the title policy, half the mineral rights were reserved and recorded.
okay. And make a condition we clear up the mineral rights deal.
Okay.
But I mean, I would propose that we, I would put a motion forward to approve the application based on clearing up the mineral rights issue.
Is that your motion?
And,
Yeah. I'll make a motion for RZ 210080 at this time to go forward, recommend for approval upon clearing up all mineral rights owner notification. And the additional conditions that are listed on the application.
Second?
you have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I know it is. It's also in here. In the, So I think the well is something that Matt will take care of, looking at the documentation. Good, we're done with that one. Okay, we're going to open the public hearing, we're going to close the public hearing on Toscano rezone and open the public hearing on the Cornerstone rezone. Staff presentation?
All right, this is the presentation for the Cornerstone rezone, RZ 210085. Again, this will be another rezoning case from Agriculture A to Agriculture Residential AR. Same density change from approximately 35 plus acres to 10 acres. This is located just down the street at 32471 North Elbert Road in Kiowa. And I'll make a note that there was a little bit of a discrepancy with our record management software, that there are effectively two case numbers for this application. In the guidance I've received, this is applicable for this project, that either case number can reference this project because it's for a staff reference only. Moving forward, the general location, as I stated before, is just down Elbert Road, southwest of Kiowa. The landowner in this case is Justin and Stacy Upchurch. They are represented by CJ Kirst of Tahoe Consulting. And this is also concurrent with the minor plat application, MP 210086, which I believe will be decided on the 28th of April following the Board of County Commissioners hearing. A pre-application meeting for this application was held on September 10th of 2020. A formal application was submitted on August 23rd of last year, and there was a single referral period from August 23rd to September 13th. For the same notification issue, we had continued the hearing from March 15th to April 19th, and the same scenario for the Board of County Commissioners being moved to April 27th as well. Noticing in this instance has been completed and cleared for the sign posting, newspaper, and mailed notice as required. Here is an aerial overview of the site. A little bit of slope as we start heading to the west, heading towards Elbert Road. The total acreage that we have here is about 47, roughly, and is flanked mostly by some industrial properties as well, one of which being Jack's Minor Industrial Development and another propane business just to the southwest of there. Generally speaking, it's mostly agricultural lands, 35 plus acres in size, with the occasional minor developments popping up along 86 and further down 134. So this is the exhibit that we have for Cornerstone. Site specifics being parcel 1 in the rear to the west is where the existing residence currently is and will remain. Parcel 2 is just to the east of that. Parcel 3 having some frontage along North Elbert Road, and then parcel 4 mostly flanked by North Elbert Road as well. One thing that I will point out with my pointer here is this, what is labeled as a view shed easement. There was perhaps some confusion with the surveyor in this instance. We had some difficulties, I suppose, in deciding upon a term to call it. There was some discrepancy between a no-build area or in general easement. Generally speaking, staff is supportive of calling it a view shed easement or an easement of any sort, or relatively speaking, a no-build area. So for the referral responses that we collected, we interacted with the following agencies and responded to and resolved comments that were raised during the referral period. Generally speaking, the school district, Elbert County C2, had requested impact fees. Public Works had requested that the roadway that would be serving lots 1, 2, and 3 be served by a type 1 gravel road, which the applicant had acknowledged, and as well to add typical boundary easements from Core Electric. In going over the rezone criteria, A through F again, we'll look at whether the proposed rezoning conforms to and is consistent with the plan. The same items for the comprehensive plan as in the previous application are of note, with water, sewer, and waste disposal stating that any new development shall conform to state laws covering water supply and septic systems, either through the state or the county level. And also with the natural resources topic area, in that new developments should try to mitigate impacts to surrounding properties as well. And then whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with surrounding land uses, staff feels as if this project being in close proximity to Kiowa with other smaller developments radiating to the west of Kiowa, that this type of density is appropriate for this area. The access that's been provided will be mitigating a lot of that impact off of North Elbert Road as well. Piggybacking that, the provision of public services in our referral process, the 3 future AR lots beyond the residence that is already existing should have very little impact in this area. As well as looking at the environment, because we are again looking at agriculture, residential type uses with low density and very low impact, that this request should have a very minimal impact to the environment. And then speaking back to traffic congestion, with a single driveway off of Lot 4 and an access drive for lots 1, 2, and 3, staff feels that the traffic congestion will be kept to a minimum, and since very limited development has occurred on that particular stretch of North Elbert Road, there have been instances, but in looking at the traffic in this particular case, staff had cleared through Public Works, Road and Bridge, that the traffic impacts would be minimal with this development. And in general, to the health, safety, and welfare of Elbert County residents, we feel that there will be no detriment to those aspects, as this is a very low density development in an area that has seen this mild density increase over the years. With that in mind, Community and Development Services recommends to the Planning Commission to recommend approval of the Cornerstone Rezone RZ210085, noting that it is in general conformance with the comprehensive plan. It generally meets the criteria for approval in the Elbert County zoning regulations. The proposal is compatible with existing and surrounding land uses, and generally we feel the proposal will not result in a significant impact to the health, safety, or welfare of our residents. Subject to these conditions, the applicant will be required to remove the public hearing sign within 7 days of a BOCC decision. The rezoning shall not become effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the rezone exhibit is recorded. Recordation of appropriate documentation to occur within 180 days of that BOCC approval. And a condition that was added after the staff report was published was in relation to the referral request made by the Elbert County C2 School District in terms of impact fees to be paid. Staff felt it appropriate to have this included as a condition and has presented it as so. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. C.J. Kirst, Tahoe Consulting, 5730 East Otero Avenue, Centennial, Colorado, 80112. Matt summarized it. It's a pretty standard rezoning case with a 4-lot subdivision meeting the 10-acre minimum requirement. As far as the conditions go, we don't have any problem with those. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Regarding, because I know that both of these sites that are adjoining parcel 3 and on Elbert Road have propane tanks. Thinking about distances from residences, is there a required setback for the distance? I know that it's common to see 300 feet from propane tanks in general, but I'm not sure what the case is for this in that sense. Making sense?
Generally speaking, I mean, if there is a setback in particular for propane related to the AR zoning, we'll comply with it. I'm not familiar with anything specifically, though.
Just asking.
Just the general lot setbacks is.
Yeah, agreed. If it was didn't have these large propane tanks, I didn't know if there was any setback. Do you know of any setback?
Generally speaking, from my experience with the code,
I'm sorry.
pardon me. Was there additional comment?
No, go ahead, Matt.
Sure. Now, from what I've seen within the code, the setbacks would be assessed for the industrial lots, not for the AR lots, that we'd create minimum separation with the approval of the industrial. But for this particular situation, I don't believe there's a remedy within the zoning regulations to actually enforce a setback on the residents. If they wanted to be that close, I mean, they would have to get fire approval. Did you have a comment, Danny?
What I was thinking, isn't that covered under the UFC fire code through the,
Yes, I believe so.
yeah, that's where I think it comes in. It comes in under the Uniform Fire Code, which whoever brings in the tanks then applies, which has to go through an approval process.
And I did look at that.
Did you look at that? Okay, Dwayne, that's good.
And they didn't have any, didn't express any concerns.
Then,
So,
okay.
I'm just asking out of Craig.
I think that would be when you locate the house.
Okay,
Yeah,
I mean, that,
okay.
they would have to get the fire
And Dwayne, I'm not really, but it doesn't come into play at this point. However, how I believe it works is when they come out to set the tanks after you're ready, what they have to do is set where they have to apply where they're gonna put the tank. Okay, who's ever the company that's bringing in the tank, so they have to get an approval as to where they're gonna place it, so it meets the UFC requirements. I think that's how that's done.
But,
Well, I wasn't speaking,
but,
sorry.
but,
That's what they had to do in ours.
but that's to put the tank on the property for the house.
Yeah, once the house is
What he's
there.
talking about are the propane tanks that are in this other part of the property.
Oh, on the other
It's
part of the
along-
property,
Yeah, there are
okay.
all kinds of propane tanks
Yeah,
in there.
in that yard,
Yeah, in the
yeah,
storage,
in the storage yard.
So that'd be the same thing when they get the building permit, they'll have to meet that,
Well, and hopefully that guy's meeting the setback requirement for his tanks that are on their yard.
Okay.
Because, I mean, that would apply to him, or her, or whoever owns the property.
Since this applies to the rezone and not a
Yeah.
establishment of a residence, I don't have any further comment.
My only question for staff, if you could go back to that, I didn't understand the no-build area and why that's even put on there.
That was just a request of the applicant to have no building occur in that area on that lot.
Okay. So
It was a request of the landowner.
not a county requirement, but yeah. Okay, the other comment I had was going through the pre-app notes, it said Elbert County Road and Bridge was only going to allow one point of access off of County Road 2541. All 4 lots are to have access from that private road. But my understanding is you're still asking for one access for lot 4, parcel 4, and another access for the other 3 lots, is that right?
That's correct.
So is that acceptable to Road and Bridge?
I believe so. They did not raise that comment again throughout the
That was
process.
only on the pre-app, and then I didn't see anything more about it, but I wondered about that.
Yeah, I think the lotting plan was even different during the pre-app. It would have allowed for a single point of or a joint driveway for all 4 lots, but it's since been modified. And then Road and Bridge saw this new layout.
Okay, I mean, being out there, it looked to me like all 4 lots could be accessed off of one road, which makes sense because, you know, you've got access to the commercial lot with the propane tanks, then another one just a few feet away for the 3 lots, and then another one not too far away for parcel 4. That's a lot of drive cuts off of that road in a short distance.
Yeah, we did have a civil do an analysis on the separation between the access points as well as site distance analysis, and they were satisfied with all that. That's in the record, should be part of the record.
And staff's okay with that.
Okay. Any other comments for CJ?
Go ahead. Community meeting. Where they go?
It was during COVID. It was a Zoom meeting. I don't think we had anybody show up.
Really?
No.
Okay. I was kind of wondering if you had.
Because Alpha closed to college. I had a couple questions. This is all water related. One, you would get no permitted.
Repeat that one more time.
I'm sorry, yeah. One of the requirements to get one of the existing well re-permitted,
It has been re-permitted. It came with the,
that's what I needed.
Yep.
Just hadn't seen that. And then all your wells must be in the lower Dawson, right?
say that one more time?
All your wells are in the lower Dawson?
That is correct.
Aquifer? Okay. And you have to have a replacement plan for the
and we
lower
do.
Dawson? And you have that?
Yep.
Okay.
From the state, it's been approved.
And then my third question is water reuse. Has that been resolved? There was a question or a requirement or?
I don't think it's a requirement. I think it's a general, notification to the county that we need to continue to be considering reuse. That's a pretty regular paragraph that comes up on these letters from the state.
Okay. I just think it's a good idea, so, well, whatever you can do, so, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay, at this point in time, do we have any public comments regarding this? Anybody want to speak to this? Okay, would you step up to the microphone and clearly state your name and your address, please?
David Johnson, Global Leasing or Global Propane. And so, been doing this propane for 30 years. And like I tell people, I'm a lot older than that, and I've been doing a lot of real estate over the years. And no one has contacted us. They may have contacted Glacier Propane about the rezoning, okay? And it's difficult for me because Justin Upchurch is a customer, okay? And the current house is located far enough away from, the facilities, okay? And there is a completely different set of rules from installing a residential tank for a home, and like the current property that Justin has, it's over the hill. It's it's really not an issue. But in national policy, what you've generally seen is a flame. Of course, you have to have a flammable gas, you have to have oxygen, and you have to have an ignition source. And in this particular case, especially in lot number 3, you look at where a house could be placed or a garage, and we've been around for 30 years. We have yet to have one house burned down because of propane. But every year, we have at least one house burns down because of a pellet stove, a fireplace, electrical, a garage fire. And I think, I'm not trying to make light of the lack of knowledge that I think I've seen today, okay, or tonight. What I am saying is, I think there needs to be some review as to especially that lot number 3 being so close that I will agree with comments made that you could literally put a garage within probably 50 feet of our chain link fences. And that garage could be the potential ignition source for everything else to go. Will it happen? Very unlikely, but I think there should be some review of that particular situation occur. See, it is different if that bulk propane tank is being brought into a residential area. But what we're talking about is bringing a residential area into a propane area and that source of ignition that is outside. The other thing that, because of what we do here, and I don't want to go in my 3 minutes, but the enterprise zone extends down, in effect, Elbert Road. And that enterprise zone is part of the county planning to develop, same way like Highway 86. There is growth occurring, but you need to have compatible growth and to potentially bring an issue in there that, since we're at this meeting, I'm not real positive. In pamphlet 58, that's the Bible of the propane industry. And it does give specific distances, even for bulk propane tanks off of county roads and away from buildings and so forth. And so if we place a truck full of propane next to that fence, and they put a building or a flammable, a source of ignition, then we have got an issue. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I'd like just to make a quick comment on that. I mean, it's very good, okay, to make sure that that doesn't happen, because I think up at Boulder, that's one of the things that happened, is they had a source of ignition too close and it blew up. But the thing is that's an issue when they go to permit the house, okay, to make sure the buildings. That's not our issue. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I would respectfully disagree with that situation.
We're looking at a parcel of land, okay?
Right,
Not where a house is.
right.
We're not involved in that. So if a house is too close, then that's an issue that you need to take up with whomever once they start to build a house.
But what I'm trying to say is that ignition source does not.
I understand that, okay? But it's where the ignition source is, okay? And we don't have any control over that.
I know, but you can allow or disallow on that lot 3.
No. We're looking at a lot, okay?
Okay.
We could disallow what?
You could take a review of that particular
We
lot.
already have.
Okay, then you've made your mind up. I'm just saying,
We've got feedback from the fire department and from the building department, everybody, okay? So it's not just us. Right? You need to understand that there's been a process that goes through here, and that
I think we can take this,
input from those people, and they've basically said, okay, well, this may be a problem, or this may be a problem, and those are things that need to be considered.
and all I'm saying is,
okay,
okay,
And your comment is good.
It's good, yeah, it's not,
Okay.
we're not
So-
discounting it, it's just that it's not the proper time to consider it.
what I'm trying to say is that source of ignition could be a stack of hay. It could be a car. And I'm just saying, I came to this meeting with 30 years of experience. We run heavy trucks, everything else. If you desire to ignore my 30 years of experience, then that's fine, you have at it.
We're not ignoring it.
But
We're just saying that it's not something that we can consider at this point. It's the property and the lot that we're considering, not what's on the property or what use. That's up to somebody else to make that determination. at that point.
And it is certainly now, my concerns are on the record, and 30 years of experience is on the record. Thank you.
okay,
One thing I wanna
thank you.
For bringing that, the one thing I would say is that the part we don't know right now, and your point is well taken. The component we don't have is where the house or the ignition source that you're stating, which is a good point. We do not know where it is going to be. So the best thing we can do is, for the information that you have given us, is to possibly make a note in this application that states when it's developed, when the house is placed, please look at it in location with the adjacent property where the propane use is. How would that be? Would that, because then we're taking into consideration your concerns, which are valid. Does that make sense?
It's kind of like the old saying of closing the barn door after the horse has been stolen.
Well, and so
Okay.
we're gonna wait until, if we make a note on this application, we will actually look, we'll review that to see that if there is a house placed on this lot, we want to be certain that it's in compliance with the distance it's needed from as an ignition source.
Oh, there is no question. You can have that house within a close distance of that fence line. Pamphlet 58 allows
Does
you
it
to do
allow
that.
it?
Oh, it certainly does.
Does it give you setbacks as to how far you have to place your containers?
Very much so, yeah.
Does it? Okay.
Yes. I mean, we have to have from the corner of a bulk tank, we have to have 50 feet to the corner of a building,
Okay.
okay?
What about from your property line? Does it give you any,
It's roughly about 50 feet,
okay.
from all sides, okay? Minimum, okay? And you certainly have a lot of instances where they have propane tanks and anhydrous tanks inside a city.
Right.
That got grandfathered in.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is,
So if we comply with that, if we comply with your setbacks on pamphlet 58, which is a governing document over hazardous material placement, I'm assuming, I'm not as familiar with that as you probably are, but if we comply with that, do you feel that's okay?
There's also a setback when the building is put in
Yeah, when
place.
the building-
So
if
if you're
there's a
50
setback for the
feet,
building-
and they have to be 50 feet or 100 feet or whatever it has to be on a setback, and I'm not sure what that is, it kind of doubles the distance.
Yeah,
So, and also when you're looking at doing something like that construction around there, I think the fire department has some input on.
they do. They do. They will.
At that point in time, when the fire department has the input, if they see something they're concerned
But when
with,
the building permit comes through is when
Right.
all this is established.
right, the building permit and the fire
That's
department
when all
is gonna
this
have
is
some input.
researched.
So you're not going to have to worry about that perspective, I don't think.
Yeah.
see, my real concern is Lot 3 wraps around the propane facilities. I mean, it just does. It's physically there. And I'm not coming here today say that you need to reconfigure lots 1, 2, and 3. I'm not saying that, or 4. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there is a real concern on my part of having that source of ignition so close on that lot number 3.
Okay.
And that's what
Okay,
we're saying
good.
is that
Point taken.
through the.
We have it.
During the building process, or building permitting
Yep.
process, they can take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none, public testimony is closed on this particular item. Would the applicant like to make a rebuttal or say anything in addition? Thank you. Now we're going to the board-only discussion. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed at this point that the board would like to discuss? Okay.
We kind of discussed everything.
I think that's pretty much been covered. Okay. I would entertain a motion. If you'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. For the rezone, case number RZ 210085, Planning Commission recommends approval going forward to the BOCC. With, subject to the listed conditions and the notations that were identified in the hearing. I cover it? Got it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, that will close the public hearing on Cornerstone. And the next one on the list is Rockhaven rezone. We're going to open the hearing on that. And the staff presentation, please.
All right, for the Rockhaven rezone and final plat, case numbers PD 210069 and FP 210071. This presentation will begin now. Again, this is a rezoning and final plat application to rezone a property approximately 79.3 acres from agriculture A to agriculture residential AR, proposing 7 lots, 6 of which being 10 acres and 1 of which being 19. This location is 741 County Road 146 Elizabeth, located between County Roads 3 and 5. The applicant and property owner is Chad Roach. As I alluded to before, this is the general location in relation to the county. It is located on County Road 146 between County Roads 3 and 5. Going through the procedure here, the pre-application meeting was held on May 27th of last year. A formal application was filed with CDS on September 29, 2021. There were 2 referral processes for this application, the first of which immediately after submittal and a second around New Year's. The hearing dates as well for this hearing were bumped from March 15th to April 19th and March 23rd to April 27th respectively. Noticing for this application has been completed in accordance with the zoning and subdivision noticing regulations.
Not from what I received, okay, which was...
Here is a general aerial view of the 79 acres subject to this proposal. Generally speaking, there is an existing residence located about here with some vegetation located on the western side of the property, but is notably accessed through this flagpole down to County Road 146. There has been mild development in the area over the last 30 or so years with Ponderosa Park Estates to the north, Pawnee Hills to the east, and some smaller minor subdivisions in Robinson and Fleming to the west and south. Something that CDS considered for arguably one of the first times, per Article 4B2 of the subdivision regulations, there is an opportunity for an applicant to request a waiver of a preliminary plat. As you'll see with this application and the one following, this is a request that CDS feels will be applicable to a lot of subdivisions that fall between that 5 and approximately 10 to 12 lot mark, that really the impact doesn't exactly necessitate a preliminary plat application. Therefore, that was approved by the CDS director after submittal by the applicant on February 2nd of this year. So in looking at the site plan on approximately 79 acres, as this was originally applied for to be a planned unit development, that was an opportunity to perhaps lower the density for the lots that were on the site to 9 acres to allow for 8 potential lots. Following some additional staff guidance after submittal, the application was revised to be a straight rezone to AR, and we had gotten the subdivision designed to be 7 lots opposed to 8. So lot 5, as you'll see on the east side, is the 19-acre lot and also bears the flagpole access as well. So this will be accessed through a single private road through County Road 146 through an access easement weaving through the property. I'll touch on that in the next slide. One thing I will mention as well is that the existing residence is on lot 6 right here. There has been an application with the building department filed for an ADU located in pretty much the middle of lot 3 up here. Based on our evaluation of the zoning regulations, this is applicable for 3 reasons. For over 5-acre lots, ADUs are a use by right, a consideration that even if this action is approved, this will transition as that future building will meet setbacks on that future lot following approval. Another consideration is that you can't have more than one ADU on a property. This would be the first ADU constructed on the property and is going through the building permit process. And the final consideration for that note is that there is no ADU size limit for a property above 20 acres. As it stands, this is a 79-acre property, which is, they're not subject to that. With the approval, that will fall as a single-family residence within that lot. In staff's discussions over the last week or so, it was determined that we would impose a condition on this application that the difference in impact fees between an ADU and a single-family residence is paid as a part of this approval and transition from an ADU to a single-family residence. Continuing on to site access, this is something that will be brought forward to the board for their consideration next week. This private road is approximately 3,600 feet. We have a standard in the regulations, Article 12 of the subdivision regulations, that state any road that leads to a cul-de-sac can't be longer than a quarter mile or 1,320 feet. This went through multiple iterations of review, going to the fire department and also to Road and Bridge as well. And given the site specifics and all the surrounding plats that I've been able to review in the area, there is no access that I was able to find in all of our records that indicate that there would be an easy second point of access for this subdivision. A concern that was raised by the fire department, which might just be an issue with the most recent document they viewed, they had raised concerns about a cul-de-sac not being viewable on the plat application, but we do have one visible on the most current iteration. So what I've done on here is I've put a couple colors on here. Red are the lots that we would anticipate to be accessed off of that private road, whereas the green would be through an access easement. The only wild card that we would have would be this lot 3 right here, and that would be looked at the time of that building permit as well, following the completion of that development. Altogether, through the review process, we've found that County Road 146 having that single access is okay with the fire department and through Public Works. However, to vary that standard, as I have listed here, through Article 1H1 of the subdivision regulations, an applicant has the opportunity to make a case as to why the unique situations of the property are warranting of a variation of a standard in the subdivision regulations. This current clause is in existence for the CDS director to approve, but that is to a standard of 10%. There is no numerical requirement when it comes to the board making that type of approval for a variance or modification to a standard of this nature, where we have multiple referral agencies signing off. Another detail that I do have on the slide as well, and research that there was found right away for some underground gas pipelines as well. That's something that we will look to have addressed in a following set of red lines before recordation. In the referral responses, generally speaking, going through the Division of Water Resources, we went through multiple letters to make sure that the water was sufficient for the 300-year requirement. Typical for the Public Health Department is to require soils reports and on-site wastewater treatment system applications at that time of development. The Fire Protection District had concerns about their fire flow requirements being met, as well as that cul-de-sac being sufficient. It has that 100-foot diameter as drawn on their current exhibit, which is sufficient for them. Public Works, again, was generally fine with the request as long as the fire department had what they needed in terms of access. The Core Electric Cooperative had asked for certain easements on the property, which the applicant had put on there. And I do believe we do have a letter from the Elizabeth School District speaking to impact fees. If not, we will have one by the time of approval. So for this particular one, we'll have both rezone criteria through the zoning regulations, and we'll have the final plat criteria through the subdivision regulations. Here are the rezone criteria. Whether the proposed rezoning conforms with the comprehensive plan, I'll touch on that with the plat criteria because that is a condition for both. Whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with surrounding land uses, looking at the mixture of different densities that we have in the area, from many lots in Ponderosa Park being under 10 acres to some as large as 80 acres and even larger than that even. This is on par with a lot of the developments and approvals that we've seen over the last 30 plus years. Whether this proposed rezoning would adversely impact the provision of public services through the approval process, and speaking with the state of Colorado Division of Water and through public health even, water and septic access will be handled accordingly, with the water already having been approved and deemed adequate, not causing injury, as well as the septic for the property being evaluated at the development of each individual lot. In terms of an evaluation of the impact to the environment with the density proposed here, we don't foresee with the referral responses we got that there will be an adverse impact to the environment with this application. In terms of traffic congestion, we deem that this would be a limited impact in terms of traffic in our referral process with Public Works and Road and Bridge. No significant comments were raised during this time. For the last criteria here, whether the proposed rezoning will not be otherwise detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of future or previous residents of Elbert County. The increase in density while keeping this agricultural context intact will not be detrimental, staff feels. And from the community meeting process onward, many of those comments that have been raised, they have a clear answer, or they've at least had somebody through the referral process that's been able to speak to those items. And we believe that the approval of this request, CDS, that health, safety, or welfare will not be adversely impacted with this approval. Now, in looking at the final plat criteria, the biggest concern that's obviously raised with the final plat criteria is through water. In looking through the Groundwater Commission approvals that were done for the 7-lot subdivision here, the Division of Water Resources, again, had indicated after an augmentation plan was approved that the water supply was accurate and would not cause injury based on the allocation approach that we typically see for our 300-year water requirement. In terms of sewage disposal, I might not have spoken to it directly, but there's not going to be a central sewer system. Each lot will have their own individual septic, and those will be taken care of or analyzed, the site-specific conditions for each individual lot at the time of development for each. In looking at the topographical conditions that with soil and things of that nature, soils report was not required by our referral agencies. Instead, soils will be looked at the time of septic application for each individual lot on a case-by-case basis. And lastly, as we've covered already, the staff feels that this application is in compliance with the Elbert County zoning regulations and subdivision regulations, with the exception of the roadway standard that I've touched on already, exceeding the quarter-mile limit allowed by the subdivision regulations. With the clause that I had shared from the subdivision regulations, Article 1, staff feels that this presentation should be brought to the board for their consideration and their final opinion on the matter. And in terms of the comprehensive plan, the same standards, relatively speaking, for conformance with water supply laws with the state and the septic rules that we have in the county, as well as new developments minimizing negative impacts to surrounding agricultural lands, as many of the surrounding areas are becoming residential and even higher density in some cases. We feel that this meets the intent of the comprehensive plan. With that in mind, Community and Development Services recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for the approval of Rock Haven rezone and final plat, PD 210069 and FP 210071, subject to the following conditions. The same standard 3 conditions that we do have for our applications, and being the removal of the public hearing sign within the 7 days of Board of County Commissioner approval, the rezoning and final plat not being effective until all fees are paid, conditions of approval being met, and the exhibits recorded, that recordation occurring within 180 days, and further that we would like the applicant to provide us in CDS proof that the fire flow requirements are met. I believe that's through the payment of $1,040 for each individual lot, putting in a 6,500 gallon cistern or sprinkler in buildings. Those are their required list of fire flow requirements. The applicant were requesting to have those taken care of before the time of recordation. And then, as I stated before, with the ADU development, paying the difference in impact fees between an ADU and a single family residence. And that'll conclude this presentation for Rock Haven.
Okay. The applicant has some comments? Go ahead.
My name is Chad Roach, 2329 South Evans Way in Franktown, Colorado, 80116. So we're just down the road a piece. And we purchased this property with the intention of building a home for my family. We have 4 children, expecting our 5th this fall. And then also some extended family members as well, some of whom are with me here, intend to kind of over time build on some of these lots as well. So this is not necessarily planned to be a development for sale or to sell lots, but really just a place for our family to put some homes down. We're excited to be residents of Elbert County. We go to church now in the county, and so are very familiar with, just right now live right across the county line in the Franktown area, but are excited to hop over and to be a part of this community here. So we worked a lot with the staff in getting this here. We had obviously a changeover in some of the staff that we were working with since we started last May, which resulted in a little bit of iteration on some of the proposed rezoning based on the initial recommendations we received and then the updated recommendations. But we're thankful working with Matthew and the team there to put together something that is a final package here and that we hope can receive positive approval from you all tonight. So thank you, commissioners, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. You have a question?
I do.
For him?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the requirements from the state water court was that they retain jurisdiction over your water.
I'm not a water expert. We had our final decree and ruling, so.
You what now?
We did have the final decree and ruling from the state.
Paragraph 28 is retained jurisdiction.
Okay.
Retained jurisdiction is necessary to adjust the average annual amounts of groundwater available.
Okay.
And at such time as adequate data was available, they would let you know how much you needed to pump back up.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The question, the thing that I want is that water out here is, as you can realize, is very important.
Sir.
And I don't know whether there's some way that the county can keep track of that in addition to the state water report. But I would certainly like to have that report, and I know because I live in a subdivision that has similar requirements, and we do have to submit a report to the state every year. That also be submitted to the county so we can keep track of it. Is that a problem?
You're speaking a language I don't speak much of, so I would probably need to go back through our augmentation plan and probably catch up on that. So I probably would have to maybe say I'll do some more research on that.
Well, that's one of the things, again, that I feel is important, okay, and particularly in we need, because there may be a subdivision put in next to you that has some requirements too. too, and that may affect the water, and that's the reason for this clause.
Okay, I think that's something that we can have in the board discussion. I don't think it's something that the applicant can answer.
Oh, no, I know he can't, yeah, but I'm just asking if he has a problem with that.
I'm unfamiliar with it, so probably couldn't really speak either way, so.
Well, the report is a report, okay? We're asking you to submit it to somebody else in addition to the study.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comments on this? Anybody like to speak? I actually have a couple of questions. Okay, would you like to come up to the podium? No, come up to the podium and use the microphone. Start with your name. Clearly state your name and address, please.
My name is Sue Ebner. My address is 36255 County Road 5, Elizabeth. I'm directly to the east of this property on 35 acres. So really, your name's Matt, right? I have questions because as you were rattling all...
You have to present it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I have questions on what Matt presented. The ADU, I understand, is an accessory dwelling unit. And then he was talking about having to pay the extra fee to make it a house. So what is being built there? I'm assuming there's a live building permit right now?
Find out.
I believe-
What's your first question?
Is there a building
Well,
permit?
go on with.
That
your
is my
question.
question. Is
Okay,
there an active building permit on that property right now?
There's, okay, that's something we can have the applicant come back up and talk to at that point.
Okay, I mean, because that kind of, my questions are going to build on this. So, and if it's a building permit for an ADU, and Matt was talking about, and then they'll pay an extra fee to turn it into a home building permit. I just need to understand what's going on, because we saw concrete being pumped over there over the last couple of weeks or whatever, and so obviously some kind of foundation's going in, and we just don't know what. So that's all we're asking for is, and then we're going to keep going with my questions. The road length, I know there's a question on that for you guys. During our community meeting, we had a question about the road width. I think the county requires it to be 60 feet wide, and our neighbors to the south of us, Bo and Geraldine Anders, measured it. It was only 58 feet wide or whatever. So I don't know if that's going to be rectified as well. Okay. And the 2 points of access, as neighbors, I think someone else is going to speak after me, but as neighbors, we've seen already with construction, we understand construction traffic. We did a major remodel on our house and our neighbors suffered through it. But just the one set of foundation that's being built, just the 12 concrete trucks that went by, you know, was a lot of additional traffic on that one point of access. So I think our whole neighborhood has concerns about that there's only one point of access into that, where there will be maybe anywhere from 4 to 6 total dwellings. Okay, and it's a dirt road, you know how it is out here. And then I think you were all just asking, did you adjudicate your rights to your well?
No, the water's adjudicated.
Is it? Okay, that, I just wasn't clear.
This is some finding from the state water.
Okay, and I've talked to that lady. And then what you were asking about is how, you know, are you going to meter your water, which would probably require putting meters on your well. So that's an interesting point. I've never heard of that before. But those are I really just have questions. I need clarification.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Bob Azzelli, live at 36789 View Ridge Drive, so we're going to be neighbors. I'm right across the street on View Ridge Drive at the bottom. And Sue already covered about the foundation that's going in there already? That's been going on now for a couple of weeks, and there is another access road off of View Ridge Drive, and they have been using that too. And we're gonna find out, hopefully they don't keep using that one, because that's supposed to be, that was a Mr. Peck's old driveway years ago. And I'm kinda curious, hopefully they're gonna block that off and put a permanent gate across there, because they're still using it right now.
Can you show that on the,
Yeah, bring the slide back up, I'll show you where it's at. Far right-hand corner,
can you show me
right there,
right up in there?
right there. There's a private road coming in right there, and they've been using it. And like I said, I'm right there across the street. You can see the long building right there. That's where I'm at. I'm right there. And they've already been using that secondary road. And we're just curious if hopefully they're gonna close it. And like Sue said, they've been back there digging away, and they got foundations going up back there and everything else. And what I understand, none of this has been okayed or approved. So how can they do that? Just curious. We've been out there 38 years. We've been out in the neighborhood for a long time. And just, Mr. Lopez wanted me to I got all this handed to me at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I did a great job. But I don't have anything else. You guys got what you need there. So, thanks.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay. Would the applicant like to step up and answer some of the questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those questions. I appreciate a chance to clarify some of those points. And I worked on clarifying them with also Matthew as well in advance of the meeting. But just for the benefit of all those here, the second dwelling being built is being built as an ADU. It is fully permitted with a permit from Elbert County. And so that was properly permitted, and we just that was done all according to the code here with the county. So that is, and we are fine with the condition of it being transferred in terms of the impact fees to a single family residence, understanding that, it wasn't being built as a way to end run, the impact fees that would be associated if this rezone and plat was approved. It was rather started with the understanding that we had the right to build a second residence and wanted to do so whether or not this subdivision was approved. So we're totally great with condition number 5 and would be fine with that. The access point is maybe 58 feet fence to fence, but the survey did show it at 60 feet, which probably just means that there was a fence built incorrectly. We did have High Prairie Survey, the county surveyor, do the perimeter survey, and it showed it being the minimum required of 60 feet. So great question. It probably just had to do with fences not being built exactly on the property line, which can happen, as everybody knows. So. And that's shown in the survey provided by High Prairie. In terms of just single point of access, and I think that it was kind of mentioned, the second access point. The second access point that was a historic access point to the north up to View Ridge Drive has been vacated and is not an active or current access point. And no one in terms of the ownership or construction team or anyone related to us has accessed that point of access. What may have occurred, which is beyond my ability to control, is it is possible that utilities may have accessed that as they have been doing the planning. We are working with both Core and Black Hills to run power and gas to the lots in these properties. And they have a utilities access easement on the perimeter of every property in the area. They have the 10-foot kind of boundary access easement. So it's possible that they were accessing and looking at their own infrastructure and preparing our, we're going to be running a gas main down and we're going to be running, power through the property. So it's possible they may have accessed that. If they did so, they did so under their access easements and their rights to do so or not. But none of our construction team and no one related to us has been using that second point of access.
You've been coming in the bottom route.
That's correct, yep, solely and exclusively, except perhaps insofar as utilities, has been out there. I've met utilities out there once, and that they said on their own that they needed to go out and send some guys out to look at it. So they don't tell me when that is. I don't get to meet them there. I don't know what they do, but they do have an access and utilities easement to be able to, survey their own infrastructure. So it's possible that they might have been using that somewhere along that northern property boundary, because that is a point of access and connection for utilities. So I do know that, they're planning to run some utilities, in that general area, because that's the best connection point for them, and they have the easements to do so. So I think that answers all the questions there. And if any of you all have any additional questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Maybe the county can go over the specifics of a accessory dwelling unit, because for these folks, they are quite a bit, when you build an accessory dwelling, they are quite a bit smaller. There's limitations on square footage. Can you?
Yeah, and with a county of this size, this had obviously been brought to my attention about a month ago, and I looked into it, and relatively I cleared it around the time that the staff report was put out for the initial meeting. And I touched on the 3 points that are really critical in this situation within our regulations. First being that any lot over 5 acres allows for ADUs as a use by right. They don't have to come into us for an administrative approval, or it's not outright not allowed, as in a lot that's under 1 acre. So on this particular one, they don't have to get any approval from Community and Development Services to be able to get an ADU. They can just simply submit a building permit. The other stipulation being that you can only build one other one. You would have the right as a homeowner of 35 plus acres to erect an additional accessory dwelling unit, and you would be subject to the same standard where you could build it larger than your primary residence per our regulations. So for lots that are greater than 20 acres, there is no limit on the size of the secondary residence, and it's specifically stated that it can exceed the size of the permitted primary residence. So it's very clearly stated within our regulation.
Can you step up to the podium, please?
So just a follow-up, and it kind of pointed at the Roaches and you, Matt. So it sounds like you started the ADU with the thought that, will you turn it into a real home then?
No, you have to address it to us.
All right, you heard the question. So is that going to be a real house then? So you have, what, 7 lots, right? 6 lots? 7 lots, okay. So you can do 7 houses, or can you do 14 on that?
You would be able to, by code, be able to do that many unless there's a regulation, pardon me, not a regulation, perhaps a plat note or a covenant in place that would restrict that. In that particular instance, because those lots would be of a smaller size, there would be different size requirements there, where ADUs, I believe, on those particular parcels, off the top of my head, don't quote me on it, is 1,200 square feet. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So if it's 35 acres or more, you can do an ADU just getting a building permit, and you don't need to come to planning and get permission to do it. Is that correct?
Correct.
It goes to the building department.
Correct. And that in turn comes back to us for us to verify setbacks and things of that nature. What made this one in particular tricky to make sure that this transition is appropriate based on this request is making sure that that ADU, when this is approved, is not violating the future setbacks. In doing those measurements, it falls almost smack dab in the middle of the future Lot 3 meeting those setbacks.
So this ADU permit that's out there it's 1,200 feet or less, square feet or less?
I do not recall the exact size of it off the top of my head. I want to say it's 9,600. Is that correct?
So 80
But you guys are changing that to single-family residence. So that permit has been converted to a single-family residence on that lot, whatever that number it is.
That's all I
Okay.
wanted to know.
Okay.
Are you building a house or not? No.
Yes, it's a
All
house.
right,
Yep,
got
yep.
it. Thanks.
Okay, are there any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment session. We've heard applicant rebuttal already, and so now we're going to go to the board-only discussion.
Your variance for your road, is that, I wasn't real clear on if you've received the variance or are you still in process of getting that variance? Please, if
Yeah, I got this. How it's stated very loosely within our regulations that that request is to be considered by the Board of County Commissioners during the approval hearing. And the approval of that variance is through the meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners as our regulations are written. So that'll be an opportunity to present that to the Board of County Commissioners for their approval or feedback on the matter.
So,
Okay.
so the road,
The variance approval, pretty much the application is dependent on the variance approval. Right, Matt?
My understanding is that it would just go back to being a public road.
How
So,
would that work? That was my question, because I hate to go through an application, and what we're doing, we're looking at, if the variance, if the application is dependent on the variance, then we're approving something that really we don't have any control over, and that it requires another process to take it through the process. So that's where we're a little kind of in a situation here where this variance, and I don't, go ahead.
yeah, I think my understanding is that the variance is due to it being a private road exceeding a certain length. The other alternative would be that it would be a public road. We're just looking to save the county the hassle of maintaining it, but that's also an option if we go back to a public road.
Because that was my next question, is what is the option is, if the variance doesn't go through, what position does it put you in? You gotta make it a public road, a county road. Okay, are you still building it to the same spec? Since it's a private road, is it gonna be the same spec or what, you guys?
It'll be a private road. And in that particular situation, the reason why we're proceeding in this matter is that Road and Bridge has indicated that they don't want to accept that as a county road to maintain it with that single access point.
But my understanding is all private roads are built to county road specs.
That's what I want to hear, because I think
Yes.
when you're building that road, you're building it to a spec, whether it's private or county. The only difference comes after the fact. You go through an inspection process, and then it's accepted by the county. But initially, it's built per the spec of the county, right?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
Okay, so then, if I understand this appropriately, right, then your variance, the only change it would be is that you end up having to run this through the county as a county.
We get free snow plowing.
Okay, all right. That was my concerns. I didn't want that, if you guys understand where I'm.
there was one other question that I had. In the water letter, it mentions that there's a well, 23047, which is not usable but was not formally plugged due to frost condition. However, the well will be plugged when feasible and prior to subdivision approval.
Yes, we can get that implemented in as a condition.
Okay, that should be a condition.
Got it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Matt, can you describe the fire flows, or, so was it fee in lieu of, reservoirs or cisterns?
That's correct. The Elizabeth Fire Department charges $1040 per lot, $1,040 per each residential lot. So in that instance, it would be for 7 lots. Sure.
Okay. Do we also need a condition on the road that's going to the BOCC?
No, because that's gonna be, I don't
I mean,
think so, because that's gonna be
he had it up
established through the
there, but-
variance.
He had it up there, but he did not show it as a condition.
When you, I thought there was an agreement that your are you talking about the cul-de-sac? Certain sides, the road, because it's longer, that the fire department signed off on?
Well, yeah.
What do you,
There was a, okay, the last item there, BOCC to consider variation under,
that's what I was discussing, Peter.
right.
I don't know that we need, since he's stated that if the variance doesn't go through, it's built to county spec, but it's gonna be a county road instead of a private road. He had stated that here. I don't know that we need a condition.
Okay.
You guys, I mean, that's where I'm looking at it. I would,
For the BOCC.
yeah, because once, the BOCC is gonna make the determination on the variation. We don't have any role in that.
We don't have any authority.
No, we don't. That's only the BOCC. So whatever they determine, he's already stated here that he'll accept.
Okay, so. the
But
only-
your issue may need a,
Yeah, it does need a condition. So the condition would be that the well 23047 will be plugged prior to subdivision approval. Okay, so it kind of makes me wonder why they got a building permit on something that wasn't approved. You know, that's kind of a, on that lot, the lot's not really approved yet.
they're building an accessory dwelling unit, which is a little.
It was approved because it was approved as an ADU, which doesn't require an adjudication.
Going through the whole
So
process.
anybody can walk up with 80 acres and get an ADU without having to have an adjudicated water plan. It's the entire subdivision as a whole that required the adjudication.
Because he wasn't
So.
required to go through the subdivision process
Okay,
to do the ADU.
alrighty. That answers my question. Okay, I would entertain,
Until the subdivision's approved, it's an 80-acre piece.
Yeah.
That's it.
But all he's doing is yeah.
alrighty, so
Your condition, Peter.
the condition I've already mentioned, that the well 23047 be plugged prior to subdivision approval. And so that's something that has to be done before it goes to the VOCC for. Okay, so I would entertain a motion including that condition.
Before going to the BOCC or before recordation of approval? Most of the conditions that have been put in there are based on recordation, meaning that approval would need to be gained.
It's prior to subdivision approval is actually in the letter. So the subdivision approval is when the BOCC approves it, right?
But it's not a condition. Before it goes to BOCC, it has to be done.
Well, the BOCC will actually approve it. And then it goes through the plat.
But before it can be recorded, that would, if they approve it, then it has to be recorded. This would have to be done before it's recorded.
Dependent on the BOCC to approve it. Then it doesn't need to be in a condition.
Pardon?
If we're still dependent on the BOCC to approve it, we don't need it as a condition. If it's still incumbent upon them to approve it, then they have to approve. Because they gotta do it anyway. We're just stating a condition they gotta already do. that make sense?
Well, I think we could bring it up as a condition to go forward.
Okay.
Then they can do what they want with it.
Then it's in
Okay.
They can,
then it's in the record.
Okay. State the condition.
okay, I've already stated it.
Okay. You
got
have
that, Matt?
You have a condition? Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a
So-
second? Oops, sorry.
No. On the, okay, do we have a second?
I'll do the second.
Okay. So we're talking about the condition. So all in favor? Okay, now, I would entertain a motion on the whole thing.
Right, did you ask who made the motion?
Okay. Would you like to make a motion on the whole thing?
Anybody got the number? Make the motion. You got the number right? There we go. Okay. So we don't have any other conditions. We got your condition in there, as stated, that's added, right? Okay, so I moved that, the Rock Haven case, PD 210069, and the final plat, 210071, we recommend approval, forwarding it to the VOCC. With the conditions added and stated.
Okay. Any discussion before? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The hearing on Rock Haven is closed. And we'll open the public hearing on Delbert Hill, filing 2 final plat.
No, now we're coming up to the end.
Are we ready to begin, or would we like to call a recess?
No, I think we can go ahead. Does anybody need a recess? Do you need a recess? 5-minute recess? Yeah, 5-minute recess.
5 minutes.
Yes, they have been in the development. There's some stuff they still do down the streets, but most of the developments, man, everything I've seen, they put underground. They put ours underground. Then they could bring them all, yeah, they've been doing that.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order. And Matt, if you'd like to continue with the Delbert Hill. Warren?
Got it. So this is for the second filing of the Delbert Hill Minor Residential Subdivision, final plat, FP 210090. As a final plat application, as I had addressed in the previous, a preliminary plat had been waived as well, and I'll touch on those details in a little bit here. So this is just a final plat application. So these lots are already AR zoned. It's approximately 86.9 acres into eight lots of 10 plus acres. The general location of the subdivision is at the intersection of County Roads 1 and 178, Delbert Road, and the newly completed 178. The landowner is 44 Delbert LLC, and the representative in this case is CJ Kirst. Generally speaking, the location is up towards the absolute northwest portion of the county, bordering Douglas County. A pre-application meeting was held at the end of September on the 30th. A formal application was filed with our office on December 20th. There was 2 referral periods, December 20th to the 10th of January and February 10th to the 24th in the last 2 months. This hearing date is fresh. This hasn't been rescheduled. This is for tonight. And it will have a BOCC hearing on our regular schedule of May 11th. The noticing as well has been completed and in accordance with the zoning and subdivision regulations. So in looking at an aerial map here, we have the Douglas County line, north to south. Lot 4, very large, 86 acres, but zoned appropriately for the requests that we're seeing here today. As for zoning, there aren't very many 10-acre lots in the area. There's a lot less and there's a lot more, but there are some pockets where we are getting that 10-acre density in between some of these larger developments in Smoky Hill Ranches, Meadow Station to the south, and some of these larger tracts in Meadowbrook Ranches and Carlson Ranch. So as I touched on before, we looked at the preliminary plat waiver. Per the subdivision regulations, if it doesn't materially aid the review of a final plat application, an applicant can make that request to staff to have that waived. In this instance, a request was filed in February to our office, and we had approved that request on February 15th. So for the site plan, a couple of the details that came up during review were in terms of the minimum lot width of 250 feet for the AR zoning district. As you'll see on lots 4.2 up here and as well as 4.6 right here, that the lot frontage isn't sufficient where it meets the roadway. Therefore, we have the setback or a setback marked in there where that width of 250 feet is met, and that is where the development can begin from there. And there was concerns generally about Wrangell Court, which is the roadway that we have ending in 2 cul-de-sacs, one on the north, one on the south. The Rattlesnake Fire Chief had argued that it would not be in their best interest to have that connecting back to Delbert Road and having that many access points that close together on a road that is expanding and getting more traffic as time goes on. So that was waived, and that was supported by the Public Works Department as well. In terms of the referral responses that I touched on with Public Works and Rattlesnake, there was concerns about that roadway in there. But because that roadway has been completed thus far, going through the process to have that extended to Delbert Road didn't exactly make sense from a development standpoint. The easements that Core had required, for example, weren't initially displayed, but typically with most plat applications we see after the applicant's notified, they get put on the plats, no problems. There were impact fees that were addressed by the Douglas County School District, which has been added in as a condition as well. And generally speaking, the Division of Water needed an augmentation plan that had been approved as well within the last month, I want to say. And in reviewing the final plat criteria, as we touched on previously, the following criteria touching on water supply again, the augmentation plan was satisfactorily completed in March to ensure that not just the 8 lots that are subject to this proposal, but the entire 15 that will make up the entirety of Delbert Hill have a sufficient water supply for their usage. And after the augmentation plan approval, I solicited the feedback of the Division of Water, and they indicated that the water supply that is available for the subdivision is adequate and won't cause injury for the 300-year water supply requirement. In terms of sewage disposal, condition or criteria B, pardon me, discusses septic systems. No central septic system is proposed here. These lots are greater than 10 acres and can get their own OWTS approval. So they'll be able to make those submissions at the time of development for each lot for their own septic systems. In looking at soils or topographical conditions, again, the applicant wasn't required at this time to submit soils reports. Those, again, will be evaluated at the time of those OWTS applications with the Elbert County Public Health Department. Whether the application is in compliance with the requirements of our regulations, zoning, and subdivision. The 2 items that I had raised in the roadway, also in the minimum lot width as well. The applicant has listened to those requests and made those amendments to their exhibit over our review periods. And in looking at the comprehensive plan, the same standards that we're looking at again in terms of community resources and that new development conforming to the state and county requirements for water and septic respectively, and as well as minimizing negative impacts to surrounding property owners. With that in mind, noting that it does meet the general intent of the comprehensive plan, the criteria of approval for the zoning and subdivision regulations, and that staff believes that this will not result in a significant impact to the health, safety, or welfare of Elbert County residents, Community and Development Services recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Delbert Hill filing to final plat FP 210090, subject to the following conditions. The standard 3 that we normally put on in the public hearing sign removed after 7 days of the BOCC decision, the rezoning not becoming effective, pardon me, that should be final plat, I apologize for that typo. The final plat shall not become effective until the fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the exhibits are recorded. The recordation of the appropriate documentation to occur within that 180 days of BOCC approval, potentially on May 11th, and an additional requirement based on the referral comments provided by the Douglas County School District to provide a receipt of payment for the impact fees for those developments. And that concludes the presentation.
Quick question for you. In the packet that we got, there were no drawings of the final plat. So I was confused by that. We're asking to review and approve or recommend approval of the final plat. We haven't seen any drawings of the final plat.
I apologize, that's included with the most recent resubmittal within that list of documents.
In here?
Yep. That was either February 1st or 2nd, 2022 resubmittal.
Drawings that I had all the certifications and none of the drawings. There was nothing that showed lot layout or any, that drawing that you had up there was not included. So it was confusing to me when we were out at the site trying to figure out where we were. That drawing was not included in the packet. Just for future reference. Not in this packet.
It's within the packet, but it's, I guess, not clearly located. So for that, I apologize.
I only looked at it online. I didn't get the printed copy, and it wasn't in the online.
So Matt, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Students from this development are going to go to Douglas County schools rather than Singing Hills Elementary?
That is correct. There is some overlap with the Douglas school boundary. I'm not sure.
Some overlap, but so Elbert County School District would get 0, even though those students, there might be an overlap?
Yeah,
How
there's.
does that work?
I'm not sure how they get that in place. That's just the school district that serves that general vicinity within the county. We refer to those folks during the time of referral, and they indicate to us that that development.
Did you ask for a referral from Elbert County School District? Because Singing Hills is right there. Singing Hills Elementary is right there.
I understand that it's not within that school district.
Okay.
That's because it's a Parker address, though, isn't it?
Quite possibly, but it's dependent on mill levies and things of that nature, how those school districts are decided. So the developments in that area will be paying taxes or their mills towards that school district, opposed to the potentially farther away Elizabeth or Kiowa, Elbert County school districts.
Okay. Would the applicant like to?
Good evening again. CJ Kirsch, Tahoe Consulting, 5730 East Otero Avenue, Suite 200, Centennial, Colorado, 80112. So this has been a long road from beginning to end, pun intended. This was the 7th lot of the original plat. That's why all these lots are labeled 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. Matt incorrectly mentioned that there's a total of 15 lots. There's only 14. I just want to make that point. It basically is a ready-to-go subdivision as far as this filing 2 goes. As Matt mentioned, all of 178 is built, and with 178, these 2 cul-de-sacs were built. Those were all a part of the first filing approval so that we could build that. This is really just a paper subdivision exercise at this point. No houses have been built on any of the original 6 lots, but I think that's going to change here really quickly, especially with 178 being opened up now. So I don't have any specific other points to make. I can answer questions.
Yeah, I had a question when I was out at the property. There is an existing driveway road that looks like it crosses lot number 1 of Delbert Hill minor subdivision. Is that, and then connects over to the new road. Is that going to remain?
It's my understanding that current tenant, I believe it's a tenant right now, will stay there. I think that the requirement for them to take access off of Wrangell Court will be if they build something new there, but right now there is an easement that gives them access directly from Delbert, and that's where their mailbox is, and power's coming in off of there.
Little dirt road that leads in.
Yep, just a long driveway.
Yeah, it is.
Any other questions for?
I mean, that's not part of this application, but I was concerned about that. Because now we have the new 178, and then almost immediately what will be another driveway or road. And it seems like that lot could be accessed off of the new county road. But I don't think
Wrangell Court.
we can't address that, I don't think. I just was curious about it because it didn't seem, it happened because of the new construction. Previously, they wouldn't have had access off of 178. Now they do.
I was involved in, all of the, proceedings along with the developer that built 178, and there was, as you guys are well aware of, there was a lot of traffic analysis done on access on Elbert, and that particular driveway was one of the areas that was investigated. And
Is that right? I remember we had about 7 or 8 engineers who wanted to
right,
get involved.
it wasn't just one. And it involved another county too.
Yeah, I was there. Okay. There's one question I had, one observation. And there's a lot of stuff in here about comments from CDS about paving. And with the private road, what we've found out is that it doesn't have to be paved with the private road, but you do have to pave the apron up on the road from 178. So that part needs to be done. And that's from Public Works. So, if there's no more discussion, is there any comments? No? Okay.
On the pavement,
Pardon?
they're not requiring,
They're required to do the apron.
yes, but they're not required, you guys aren't requiring.
They're not required to pave the road, but they're required to pave the apron.
Because it's a private road. Yeah. Okay. And the standards, I did have a question on the road standards.
And that's a private road, is that right?
Yeah, that's gonna be a private road.
And that's a private road, so it'll have to be built to county road specs too.
That's why if it was gonna be a county road, we would require it to be approved down. Again, I'd have to check,
I think
but the specs on that road, CJ had the specs, because that's under rattlesnake.
Correct.
Are they the same? Off the subject, is it the same as Elizabeth?
Is the what, Elizabeth?
Is the specs, because they've got roadwood specs, your cul-de-sac width, okay?
No, I mean, that's all built according to Elbert County.
Delaware County, but also the
Roadway.
fire department has specs on how big that cul-de-sac is.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. Did they specify what,
I don't believe I saw anything from the fire department in here.
that's why I was kind of asking, because I didn't see.
Did you get anything back from the fire department?
Yeah, that was provided at the time of pre-application, and I believe the standard that they have is the same as Elizabeth with the 100-foot diameter. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I didn't
that's
see
100.
anything in there as far as the size of the cul-de-sac or anything, but they stated it and they were okay without tying it into
Right.
Elbert, so, okay. Another question.
Okay. So there's no great public comment, and we've spoken with the applicant, so now we're down to basically a board-only discussion. Any comments?
One quick one.
Shoot.
There was, on page 3, there's a rattlesnake fire protection district commented immediately following pre-application. I can't find that comment anywhere. Did I miss it in the second? I'm just closing the loop on that, so maybe I missed it.
And if it's not in there, I can read it out for you if that would be helpful.
Yeah, just so I.
And that's the only thing we got from them is just a pre-app.
I had solicited their feedback at least 3 times after formal application and didn't receive anything. So in this particular situation, the pre-app comments I feel can transcend through the process. All right, I have the comment from Rattlesnake Fire at the time of pre-application. As it was stated from Cass Kilduff, the fire chief for Rattlesnake, he stated, the fire district understands that both the county side and the developer side pertaining to the roadway issue, in particular to Wrangell Court as it attaches to Delbert. That was really the conversation at hand for that. He says, on behalf of the district, an additional access road out onto Delbert does not make sense from a safety standpoint. Rattlesnake Fire approves the cul-de-sac to the north and will accept the design as currently filed.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the board? Okay, I would entertain a motion on this one.
Approve Delbert Hill filing 2, FP-210090. According to the conditions that are outlined.
Four conditions.
Four conditions, yeah, should I mention?
Second.
Roger.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes the hearing on Delbert Hill. The next one is the Potestio Brothers rezone. And if the staff would like to make a presentation on that?
All right, if you haven't gotten tired of my voice yet, Potestio Brothers rezone, case RZ210073. Again, this is a rezoning request from agriculture A to industrial. Apologies for the typo I'm seeing here for agriculture being there twice. The location is 3890 County Road 174, Parker. And the landowner is 3890 County Road 174, LLC. The representative in this case is Tom Maroney, but I do have a representative from the Potestio family here to speak tonight. The location, generally speaking, if you're familiar with the location of Spring Valley, it's flanked almost entirely on the north and on the east by Spring Valley filings. A pre-application meeting was held for this rezone request on October 20th of last year. A formal application was filed and accepted on December 6th of 2021, and a single referral was completed between December 6th and the 27th of 2021. This was not a rescheduled hearing. This is the first Planning Commission hearing on April 19th with a board hearing on May 11th as well. Noticing has complied. Both mail, sign, and newspaper comply with our requirements as well. So an aerial map, I apologize that the red outline is not coming in very well up here, but there is a southern boundary right here. This was a relatively new change in the last 2 or so months. As this was initially applied for and given guidance by previous members of CDS, this was addressed as a partial rezone, which does not match with our code or any of the processes that we have. It was requested to take the 70 underlying acres that had been in existence and was subject to the proposal and chop it into 2 35-acre parcels and rezone just the portion that's subject to this request to industrial, opposed to having 70 acres as industrial in this location. The zoning is pretty even across the board. You have pockets of agricultural with large 35-plus acre tracts in the area, as well as some denser development coming up on the periphery of this Potestio site. Spring Valley Ranch filing 5 and additional filings for the future are across the road, across 174, and the first couple phases of Spring Valley are to the east as well, with some smaller subdivisions such as Rambling Rose Estates coming in as well. So in going over some of the site details here, this was initially raised as a zoning compliance related action. If you're not already familiar with the property, this was the former Hunt Estate where there was the archery range full rut that was approved by special use about 13 years ago. This was essentially sold with a disclaimer for commercial or potentially higher based on how the property had been used previously. So in meeting with Tom and the landowners as well, learning what they do, it mixes the best with agricultural equipment sales, rental, and repair, which by our interpretation fits best with the industrial zoning district. But in mind, there is no industrial zoning within the area. There's very limited development when visiting the site and the area overall. So in general, as it was purchased, the intent was not to make any modifications to the structures. Essentially, it was a matter of coming in and using what was already there under the pretense that it was commercial, which it was not. The applicant had made the effort to be able to go through this process to get here. And again, I'd like to emphasize the point that no changes have or will be proposed for the future, at least as I understand it at this point. So through the referral responses, we didn't get a lot during the actual referral period itself. There was a lot of discussions that happened after the fact with miscellaneous details that we were turned on to in the later hours of review in the public health department requiring an OWTS inspection, for example, the building department requiring a change in occupancy permit, and the core electric company requesting easements on the property as well, with this being a rezoning application, not exactly the most effective way to be dedicating easements. These items I will touch on in the conditions. In the review criteria for the rezoning, I'll walk you through the CDS view on this. So in terms of the comprehensive plan, again, same standard in that new development should minimize negative impacts to adjacent agricultural lands and designated open space. In approximately 3 site visits here, I've noticed that there isn't a lot of intrusive nature to this business. It is relatively quiet and using what is already there. In terms of water quality, connecting to existing potable and wastewater sources, we had sent this out to referral through the Division of Water and were provided with feedback from Spring Valley Water District as their water provider. The Division of Water did believe that that well should be plugged, but for this request, the division shouldn't have been contacted in the first place as they aren't the water provider for this property. In terms of the economic growth that the comprehensive plan speaks to, we should encourage the recruitment, expansion, diversification of the industrial economic base to achieve that diverse economy that the commissioners are looking for. And the county should encourage this development that minimizes the impact on surrounding lands. I can attest to that, having done multiple site visits here. And in general, the county should support the development of agriculture, commerce, industry, and education. This is relatively the assembly of agricultural equipment, mostly conducted indoors with some storage on the exterior. Relatively speaking, the impacts are minimal. The question comes into place as to whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with surrounding land uses. In general, this would be an industrial zoning district, but this has the benefit for the larger agricultural community in the production of farm equipment that benefits the area as a whole. In looking at the surrounding area altogether, a lot of this area is undeveloped for the most part, or currently under development, I should rather state. This had already been used quasi-commercially for some time, for at least the last 15 or so years since the special use permit had been approved by our department for full rut archery as well. So generally speaking, this property has been viewed not residential or not agriculturally, but instead for something a little bit beyond. But because what's being proposed isn't even going as far as having folks on site for sales or things of that nature, that's entirely a business operation, that's assembly on site and shipping off with a gate, that we feel that it would be appropriate for the surrounding area. In terms of looking at the provision of public services, the business on the subject property does now have paved access to 174, quick way in and quick way out, east or west. And then water access itself is in place through Spring Valley. So in general, being serviced by the sheriff, Rattlesnake Fire, and even considering how Elbert County Public Health would look at this in conditioning a review of the septic system, we feel it's appropriate looking at the services in the area in general. In terms of looking at the environment, looking at how their business use is mostly conducted indoors from my interactions with the applicant and what I've been provided to review, this has a very limited impact on the environment, considering they have not made any material changes to the property as I've been made aware of. And in general, the approval of the rezoning itself, we feel, does not have an impact on the environment, as this is an existing use. In general, when it comes to traffic congestion, as I touched on before, it is serviced by paved county roads, and it was not identified as a concern during the community meeting phase, nor on the site visits that I made. I did not notice a significant amount of traffic in my time going out there. However, the higher traffic counts that might be associated with that industrial zoning should be under consideration and could be considered separate from the use being proposed. Here. And in general, looking at the health, safety, and welfare for the residents of Elbert County, speaking to this very clearly, the existing use is supported by the industrial or commercial zoning, most applicably industrial, and based on the review that we've completed, consistent with all rezoning applications, the fact that we got very limited public comment, that industrial in this location could be appropriate with some of the growth that we're having here, as long as appropriate screening, buffering, things of that nature is looked at. The structures on the property are larger agriculturally approved buildings for the most part, and they could support those industrial uses as they're used today. And for the most part, they are away from the public eye. Future industrial uses that could occur outdoors could have negative impacts on agricultural or residential neighbors, but that would be able to be gauged at the time of a site plan, as any building permit would trigger a site development plan in that situation. With that in mind, Community and Development Services recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Potestio Brothers RZ21-0073, subject to the following conditions, and a lot of these conditions are touched on from some of the referral comments we've received previously. Again, removing public hearing sign after a week of approval by the BOCC, the rezoning not being effective until fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the rezoning exhibit being recorded. That recordation occurring, of course, within 180 days. The applicant will receive approval of a site development plan prior to the recordation of the rezone exhibit if determined by staff to be needed. Because this is something that we've been evaluating only for approximately a week at this point in terms of timing with the building department, does the change of occupancy trigger that? Is that building permit per se enough to trigger a site development plan to look at a lot of these various items, from buffering and screening to traffic, in a separate application? We're looking to make that determination. And then in general, going back from the core response, record and provide the easements required by core cooperative to CDS prior to recordation of the rezone exhibit. Provide CDS with a copy of an approved change in occupancy permit from Elbert County Building prior to recordation of rezone exhibit. And that's relatively contingent on that site development plan and the order in which those items can be completed if the site development plan is needed for that change in occupancy. complete a septic inspection with Elbert County Public Health and provide approval documentation to CDS prior to recordation of the rezone exhibit as well, addressing all of the comments that we had received from referral agencies relatively in the last 2 weeks. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Matt. Would the applicant like to make any comments?
I'm Jacob Testio, 3890 County Road 174, and I'd like to thank everybody in the room for the attention and the detail, and I feel that the staff has accurately and fully disclosed everything to the best of my knowledge.
Do you have any public comment?
Yes.
Would you like to state your name and your address?
We will. You saved the best for last. My name is Larry Bystrom, 3327 Wild Rose Circle, Parker, Colorado, 80138. I'm in the Rambling Rose Estates. That was on that one of the pictures, one of the 10-acre plots, one of 4. Yeah, I'm between the TAT, that's ours, on the States. So I'm a little bit disappointed in something here. We had a community meeting we had a representative, and pretty much it was the neighbors around there. And during that community meeting, we listed several issues and concerns, and none of them were even addressed here. First off, there's a huge difference between running an archery operation, a bow club, and the shipping, receiving, assembly, transporting of the machinery that they do. And I'm not saying we should not approve it, because we don't want that to happen. But your comment about no increase in traffic, that's not true. Not only has there been more traffic, it's been of a bigger nature of trucks and trailers hauling the equipment out. Before it was a pick-em-up truck driving with a dad and his son out to the range. So, and unfortunately, that was when it was a dirt road. Now that 13's been paved, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, because it's going to become a super highway once it gets all the way connected and becomes a route around going down Elbert. And we asked that, we did notice that your drivers did tend to be a little bit of a hurry. So that was one of the comments that we issued, and I thought the guy that was there said he would take that up with the management. The second item we brought up is, we're a little quiet bedroom community there. On these buildings, they've got these huge lights, and I understand that they need them for security, but the lights on those buildings are just overwhelming. And we asked that something be done about that, and the gentleman that was represented said no problem, that they could probably direct the lights downward. So I would like to see a condition that they take care of, we call it the light pollution. Beforehand it was nice, you sit out on our back porch and clear, dark sky, and now we've got these. The only other excitement was when one of their shops burnt down. That kept us up one night. But I mean, we're not trying to say no, don't do this, but we would appreciate if you do something about the lighting. Yeah, because you got first building.
Excuse me, you need to address your comments.
Yeah, the first building, you got like 3 lights on it. The second one has like 5. It's almost like a line up and then almost like a cross. And then you got the third building has several other ones that are really, and I understand he probably needs it for security to make sure nobody's pilfering his equipment.
What hours are those lights on? Are they on all night?
That's still
dawn.
And then the other thing we talked about was okay it from industrial, and I don't think he's gonna do it, but there was some concern, some of the other neighbors brought up, is there any hazardous materials or chemicals and stuff, and I'm assuming somebody in that board would have looked at that to make sure that that we're not gonna have any problems with that type of issues, and I don't know what solvents and things like that are gonna be used, but I'm hoping that that is something that the board here reviews or is aware of and make sure that that can't be a problem. So I think that about takes care of my 3 minutes of glory.
Thank you. You know, whatever we do here, it'll go to the BOCC. And if you'd like to speak to the BOCC at the time that this is presented to them, you could do that as well. Okay, great. Would the applicant like to speak to those questions?
So as far as the driver's speed, I was not in attendance of the first meeting. Tom Maroney and staff was here on record. He did bring up driver's speed. We were to talk to them about that. We did. I would suggest that if you call one of our headquarters stores at Parker, Colorado, ask for me if there's an issue, or you can call the local sheriff. There's 2 buildings on site, not 3. The third is on my personal property, so the lighting is irrelevant to that. Lighting issues, the facilities, fences, driveways, and everything are exactly what was standing. We in turn turned the lights on, revamped facilities, and powered everything, so that's has not changed. Hazardous materials on the property, we do have approximately, I believe Matt, you saw it, 14-foot wide, 35-foot long fuel dike, and it is fully lined with our overhead fuel tanks. Other than that, there are no hazardous materials on the property. I do beg to differ on truck traffic. The bow shop was a retail facility. This is a gated facility with trucks by our invite that are by our bringing us materials that we know are coming and going. So neither here nor there. We didn't do a traffic study, and neither did Rick, so I don't have an answer to that, but I do feel we are lower traffic than the bow shop was.
Okay. Would you be willing to restructure the lights so that they don't point down?
Put like domes on them, possibly, yeah. You are put in like a tree line, if that would be of interest.
As long as the light doesn't go beyond the property.
Right.
Direct it downward.
And the light is not currently leaving the property. They're big wall packs. They're about like that. So, yeah, whatever we need to do. Yes, sir.
The only reason I bring it up is that's what he said. At that meeting, he said that was amenable to that.
That it was what?
It didn't seem like an unreasonable request to focus them more down instead of.
And I don't disagree with him. I wasn't there. We are willing to do it, but when this deal comes to fruition and the rules come to time, that will be done if that is what it takes.
Matt, you want to make a comment?
Sure, and that was really the point of having that site development plan in there. It looks at those items from traffic to lighting, seeing how that is still a concern by surrounding neighbors. I believe from a CDS standpoint that we would look to require that site development plan regardless, to make sure that we're looking at a lot of those site-specific items to make sure that this particular use fits on that property as zoned industrial.
Okay, so that's already included in that site development plan.
Correct. So it's worded in such a way that we would have the opportunity to revisit that before the board hearing, but hearing the comment that we have gotten here tonight, I feel it's appropriate that we have that as a condition, because that'll allow us to look at buffering and screening, that'll allow us to look at lighting, they'll be able to look at other various site specifics that are essentially the checks and balances for making sure that they're a good neighbor with that industrial or commercial zoning.
Okay. Now, the condition you had in there regarding the septic inspection, Stacy has some questions about who's actually using it. Is it all the employees or?
Yes.
Okay. So potentially, after that inspection, they're gonna have to redo that system to make it sufficient for everybody coming in. And
Employees only meaning, sorry to interrupt, an average of 4 a day, 4 employees a day.
okay, so however they work it, I mean, potentially there is something that they're gonna require on that. So that could be, I can't conjecture as to what they're gonna come up with, but you could conceivably have some construction that be done related to that. I think that takes care of my questions. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. And we've got, hold on just a second. We've got I think we're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment has already been done, so I'll close public comment at this point in time. And we'll move to a board-only discussion and whatever.
My question was for the applicant with respects to, I noticed that in one drawing, there was a cafe mentioned on the smaller building. Is that from the
That was,
archery days?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, and it still comes up on the map as Broadhead Cafe. Our drivers get lost all the time. Yep. Days prior, yes, sir.
I have a question for Matt. You mentioned that this does not fit the zoning of anywhere near the vicinity. Everything else is A or AR, or it just doesn't fit. What triggered the rezone again?
That was a zoning violation filed by our code compliance officer.
How long has it been used for that purpose?
Since purchase in 2018.
So it's been 4 years it's been used the same way.
And I believe it was red tagged by Mike Moore on September of 2019 off the top of my head. And really it was a matter of my interactions with Frank, at least, that there was some considerations as to what the appropriate course of action was to be. It wasn't exactly very well spelled out. And then I believe once he began working with Mr. Maroney, that the process was honed in on, and we're here today for that. So I'm not sure about that timeline before I had started with the county.
So do you feel that this will encourage more industrial zoning in that area now? Because we've set a precedent that, hey, this is an industrial area that now it can change the makeup of the area?
It could. I'll just say it flat out. It could. But given the site situation that we have here, where we have a very large lot, it's been mostly kept to good standards from my visits to the site. It's not a noxious industrial use that you would typically associate where you're having like heavy manufacturing or things that are contributing far beyond any neighbor's possible concern. Really, in this particular situation, that when we established perhaps the economic development zone, using that as a base mark, that we were looking at paved roads within the county that could be potential employment centers. Whether or not this is the type of approval that could lead to that, I can't speak to
Now,
that.
could this been a special use permit? I mean, couldn't we have just given some kind of special use and left the zoning alone? Can you do that or not? Can't do that? Sure.
Would you step up to the podium?
Prior to, Rick had this set up as a special use by review, and the property, because the house was sold, I ended up buying it prior to in 2017. This was advertised as commercial, so which has nothing to do with the county. Purely by the auction company that sold it, it was advertised as commercial. The two facilities with the 70 whatever acres it may be as commercial. It had no specification of special right by review or any of that. So this was purely a compliance regulation that we, wanting as Petestios to get in compliance with the county to do this. And
Yeah,
we brought up, yeah, so you remember all the whole gamut there. So like I said, it was, again, not on the county. on the advertisement and the way it was portrayed to us from the seller, that it was zoned commercial ready to go. We got zinged in this position, and now we're just simply trying to get in compliance. That makes sense?
I understand.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And let me, no, go ahead, Van. And to go back to your question a little bit, the county doesn't zone areas as industrial or residential or commercial or retail. We go a lot on private property rights. Will it, if there were people looking for industrial areas, they would come to economic development. We'd try to put them along the EDZ, which has better access and everything else. Will this property pop up as industrial on a map of the entire county? Sure, it will. But, you know, to answer your question, I don't think it's going to be a magnet for other industrial.
That was the question I had.
174. It's paved now, you know, so we'll see the same thing on 186 when they finish paving that out down to, you know, 1721. So, yeah, I don't know. It's part of our goal to continue to pave more roads because they're.
It could well end up to be looking for industrial
And we stray a little bit from this application, but as we see more and more subdivisions coming in, we're trying to look at more mixed use too, where it's a mix of commercial and residential. So, yeah, the county's changing, I guess, is a good way to say that, Van. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, to throw into the point of what was being said there is everything along 1721 up to the golf course is being developed on that'd be the west side of 1721. 174 is being developed on both sides from a couple of developers, and we're not going to speak names to start another battle here. That's on the north and south, and let's see, right across from the water tank there, that's all being turned into 35-acre developments. So I don't foresee, in my opinion, a lot of industrial use following this behind just due to the lack of real estate. Yep. Right. And I do believe there's a piece tied to the golf course, 5 or 6 acres of commercial that has been planned, if what I've been told is correct. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to happen somewhere. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk through it. I just wanted us to talk through it while we're doing the board discussion and kind of hash it out a little bit and see where we're at. But
Okay. Do we,
I have a question for staff again. So my understanding of what you said was the decision to go to a rezone to industrial was pursued by the applicant, not by staff. And in other words, the special use review process was determined not to be the case, not by staff, but by the applicant. Is that right? But who decided not to do that? The ownership.
I'm trying to put the right words on this, I suppose, that just the timing of when they came in for pre-application, it was me and the applicant, per se, with perhaps 2 to 3 months of experience. If Tom is telling me that it's a rezone to industrial, I find how that works and I roll with it. As we've started to look into a lot of these other issues, per se, that looking into a site development plan on a lot of those items makes sense from where we're currently at. To make that stretch to a special use by review at this point in time, at this juncture, it could be appropriate as well. There's multiple avenues to getting to that success point for this property. And that's essentially what I want to leave you guys with, that if the rezone isn't appropriate, sure, special use could be appropriate as well, but as we have proposed it here, a rezone is the application at hand, and a site development plan would augment the materials that we have to review and to ensure that a lot of those industrial related items are addressed.
So staff is recommending approval of this as an industrial.
Correct. Subject to the conditions.
Okay. One, the only thing that changed is the occupancy. Correct? Structures, everything stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In fact, according to you, it was cleaned up. Okay. It was functioning before as an SUR, correct?
For the archery range,
Yeah.
but there's been a period of non-compliance with the zoning regulations.
Okay, so essentially when you took ownership, that SUR really wouldn't have transferred because it really wasn't applicable at the time.
Unless you're using it as an archery range, correct?
Correct, if he'd have taken over and used it as that. So at that point, he was in a position where he had to rezone it to comply with his occupancy or use.
Correct.
Both.
As we had identified it, it was a use by right in industrial.
It is.
And noting,
That's where I'm headed. Okay, because it matches the industrial uses on the chart. It goes out of the SUR because as a range, it was required to be under an SUR. So all it did, change in occupancy, switched it to where it could be a use by right under the codes, under the industrial use. So that's where we're at. I actually really agree with that. I would much rather see it go under the industrial side instead of an SUR, because then we have definitive criteria to govern an industrial use of property. SURs are a little out of line. The other thing is, so I would be for going this way. Second thing is, under industrial use, you also can apply your regulations as per lighting and, right? Because don't we have,
I believe so. I'd have to make that verification. One thing that I wanted to double back with just came to mind. The other reason why we had proposed industrial is the existing structure as it is on there is subject to a 60-foot setback in industrial opposed to, it meets the setback in industrial opposed to ag.
industrial and
Correct.
not commercial.
Correct. That's the other caveat.
Okay, all right, that helps. That actually helps. Okay. So, really what we're looking at is a change in occupancy, no change in structure, appearance, anything else. But then we go back to, you want a condition on the lighting.
The question would be should it be a condition that is the items that would make up a site development plan that would get us to a comfortable point with lighting, buffering, things of that nature? Would that be more appropriate than a site development plan application? I'm not too entirely sure.
Okay, see, because if you're going to switch it to industrial, you should go through a site development plan. You should.
By code, you're supposed to.
Yes. So, and your lighting is going to be covered
Correct.
So that'll happen
It's not even a
subsequent to
condition,
this.
it's already required, so
Subsequent
it's
to
not.
this, he's gonna have to go through that process.
So instead of writing another 5 conditions on the items of a site development plan, simply requiring one is appropriate.
And that's where I'm ending up is,
Yep.
okay, really, if you switch it to industrial, you're gonna go through all this, through the site development process. You're gonna cover the lighting issues and take care of probably many other things.
Access.
So, hey, get that cleared up.
That's not a requirement. I mean, it's a requirement already on you. It's not a condition we need to specify, correct?
Correct.
So that's what I was saying then, Dwayne, because it's through the site development process, it's gonna be covered.
And more stuff than you know.
So all we gotta do is determine if we wanna approve the zoning change.
Thing about the site development plan is right there.
And any other comments?
No, not for me.
I just had a comment initially. I was concerned about the zone to industrial, not because of the use that we're looking at now, but once it's zoned, it can be anything that's permitted in that zone. That's a concern to me. It's just the same thing that happened to them with the archery thing, where that is kind of a commercial use and it was sold to them as that type of zoning, which it wasn't. I'm concerned about that, but I went through the zoning matrix, and I don't really see anything in there that would be objectionable that is permitted by right. There are several things permitted by special use, special review in industrial, so that satisfies that concern. The other thing that I noticed is only because of the location of the site. I mean, we're surrounded by residential, but that water treatment facility or storage facility for Spring Valley Ranch is right next door, and that's essentially an industrial use also. So locationally, I think it's the only site that is appropriate to that type of use. So I'll go with it only because I'm satisfied with the uses that will be permitted in an industrial use. And like Van said, I think encouraging this type of development in the county economically is what we're trying to achieve. And that's a pretty good location because of the transportation now.
And most of those uses that would be deemed more intensive than what's currently going on the property would require a special use by review.
Right.
Or potentially would have to get looked at by our department anyways in any change in occupancy or any building permits that are filed as well.
If they change occupancy or change use, they'd have to go through.
Possibly.
That's the
So
only
you
thing
get another
that's
chance at
satisfying.
seeing it if it changes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I move that, the Casio Brothers rezone case, RZ 210073, you recommend approval to the EOCC with the current conditions and following the
Or
regulations for.
the site development plan requirement. So you would like that condition removed?
Which is included in your.
Conditions? It's already there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's already there.
Okay.
It was a matter that you had brought it up before, that if it's already required for compliance sake, that does it need to be a condition or not?
Okay, then if it's already there under the site plan, then
We're gonna bring up the conditions real quick.
under the
Sure.
current conditions.
So that's as the condition is written now.
Good, okay, then if it's already there, I didn't remember that, so recommend approval for that application
Yep.
with the current conditions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you get that?
Okay, I would, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
I second that one.
Oh, wait a second, yeah, you do.
John Surbeck, came and saw me today. He's asked for a deed of absence on July. I granted it, I cleared with the commissioners. He's just so busy right now with standing up Douglas County Board of Health. He said he just can't get to the meetings until July. So, it's gonna be a commissioner short. The next meeting, and Matthew's back from the office, so I've got it right, it's technically 5:03. I don't think we have anything scheduled right now. We're looking at making that a joint work session with DOCC and you guys, 7 o'clock Tuesday night.
Nice.
So if you guys can keep that on your calendar, that'd be great.
Sam, along the same lines, the second meeting in May, I won't be in town, so. I don't know that we'll have anything, but I know that I won't be here. You have a Rockies game.
I'm missing a Rockies game.
I'm fighting the cold.
Okay,
That's all I have.
Sam?
Yes,
Kevin Kirkwood,
it was approved.
okay, and I don't know if he was even put on the mailing list for the, meeting tonight.
I'll check with Greg.
Okay, if you could make sure that he gets on the mailing list.
Training session.
Alrighty, so we're adjourned. Ka-ching.
Let's go to Disney.